All right, welcome in everyone to our first podcast. This is the EWC Eastern Wisconsin Boys Basketball Podcast. Tonight I'm joined by my good friend and high school basketball fan, Andrew Fisher. How's it going tonight, Andrew?
Good. It's going good. I'm excited to be here and talk about some Eastern Wisconsin Conference basketball.
Yeah, of course, as am I. Season a little over halfway done. But it's not wrapped up yet. We got about 3 weeks until the playoffs start. And we got a lot of action and a lot of things to talk about until then. Hopefully we can do a couple more podcasts by the end of the year. Maybe do one to wrap things up at the end of the year. And hopefully if the fans enjoy them, followers of the account enjoy them, we can start this thing next year and have guests and reoccurring people on the show. So tonight we're just going to keep it simple. We're just going to start out. We're just going to go through a little preview of each team. We'll go through all the 8 conference teams in order of where they're ranked currently in the conference. And then we'll talk a little bit about the player of the year candidates, or maybe who's in the running for the player of the year right now, who's the favorites. We'll discuss that, and we'll look upon previous year's winners. And then we got an interview with a player from the EWC tonight. So we got a good show for you guys, and let's just jump into it right away. We'll start with the Roncalli Jets. I'm kind of lucky. We both got to see them in person last night. So
Yep.
The Jets are a team. They obviously lead the conference, and I think in a year like this, when there's a lot of unknowns, and in this conference is kind of an unknown. There's a lot of teams who, anyone can beat anyone for most of the teams. But I think Roncalli is just kind of ahead of all the other teams. What do you think?
Yeah, they definitely seem like an outlier. I was just looking at some numbers. They're first in the conference in points per game with 65, and they're first in the conference with opponent points per game with only allowing 46. Obviously, when you're in first in both those categories, you're gonna be in good shape.
Yeah, that's right. And the thing, you watch them on film or at home virtually on YouTube when you watch games, and it's always slower on film. They always look slower on film. They're always like, oh, well, Roncalli, yeah, they play good defense. But like when you watch them in person, especially their duo, Luke Pouts and Tyler Bonin, those guys are everywhere on the floor. Tip balls, steals. They just dominate. They want it more than the other team. They're just very impressive team to watch. And they kind of, not to say they came out of nowhere, but they lost a couple of key guys. Bryce Pouts, Luke Pouts' older brother. He was an all-state honorable mention for Division IV last year. And, just guys like Jacoby and Alex Orth. There's some other nice players that they lost, and they've had a lot of guys step up, as we saw last night. Guys like Joseph Witsack, Hunter Halupny, hitting big threes down the stretch, and they just got a perfect team. And Coach Joe Garceau really has meshed them together, and they've been playing some really good basketball. Haven't lost yet in the conference, and have only lost twice this year to really tough opponents in Oak Creek and Notre Dame. And looking ahead for Roncalli, the one thing that stood out to me when I looked ahead to their sectional, they got Sheboygan Lutheran in their sectional. So hopefully on a later podcast we can talk about that matchup if it occurs. And I think that one is going to catch some eyes, some basketball fans around the area.
Yeah, I see. I'm looking out at their sectional here. They're in 2C in Division 4. So, they got an easy little section there. But, yeah, they'd meet Sheboygan Lutheran. That would be in, the sectional semi. So that'd be a good contest for them. Even in the conference, you're looking ahead next Friday. I see they got Kiel at home. That'll be a good game.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the Kiel Raiders next. Sorry, I forgot to change the slide. But here's Roncalli's slide. We got Tyler Bonin and Luke Pouts leading with pretty good numbers with the in-conference stats, along with Hunter Halupny at 7.7. All right, we're going to switch gears and go over to the Kiel Raiders now, and here are their stats for their conference games. It's basically a three-headed monster over in Kiel. Who's going to have the hot night? We saw Travis Coleman score 43 one night. Carson Leppisto has been tearing it up. He had a 26-point night against Falls last night and played well against Berlin when we saw them last week. And Pierce Arntz, as a freshman coming in, there was a lot of talk. Not a lot of people knew about him, but he really was a good player at the middle school level. I watched him a couple games last year, and boy, can he shoot the three, and he really knows the game. He's a smart player and plays the game the right way. So that's just tough scouting for them. You got to know where the three guys are at all times. Usually you don't have the issue with most teams like that. What do you think about Kiel?
Yeah, Kiel, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's really the 3-point basket is what's been clicking for them. They're the best 3-point shooting percentage team in the conference. And I mean, they shoot the most. They shoot almost 25 threes a game. These three guys kind of lead the way for them. They're a great team in the conference, second place right now. And we got that big matchup with Roncalli next week.
Yeah, and I don't think you can skip over Kiel, though, talking about Keenan Munz. He's third in the conference in rebounds right now, but he's averaging 10.1 rebounds a game, and he's just a bruiser inside. He gets those offensive rebound, kicks it back out for three. And thing I noticed about Kiel, especially with Munz, Lepisto, Coleman, Endries, Schmitz, couple Lewis, a lot of those guys like that, they're just a senior-led team. They play with energy. They're out there. They're playing to have fun, but they're playing to win. And they're out there fighting for their brothers every night. That's just what I noticed about them. They're a really tight group, and I think it shows on the court a lot, especially last week when we watched them. All right, well, next we'll head over to Valders. What do you have on Valders?
Valders, yeah. So, I mean, we talked about 3-point shooting for Kiel. Valders is second in the conference in 3-point shooting. Like you see up here, they got 3 double-digit scorers. That's always tough to defend. And they play some pretty good defense too. They only allow 55 points per game. That's second in the conference behind Roncalli. So a pretty well-balanced team on both ends of the basketball.
Yeah, I agree. And Valders, they're well-coached team with Trevor Schwer coaching. And the thing about Valders is, they don't have a lead star. It's maybe they're not as dynamic as a Coleman or a Lepisto or an Arntz as where they have in Kiel, but they're a really balanced team. Like Cole Hovey had a big night last night, I know, and some of their younger guys, and like you said, they shoot it very well. All their guys can shoot. Peyton Dietrich is an experienced player. He kind of leads them, I think, as their ball handler, and they're still pretty young. You look at Hovey and Olsen; they're both sophomores, and they're both promising sophomores. And I mean, it's a good year to be a Vikings fan, just knowing that you have younger players coming up and lots of shooters, and they're a sneaky team. They're a team who could spoil somebody's playoffs or make a little run in the playoffs, because I'm looking at that D3 sectional that they're in. I believe Brilliant's also in their pod. That one's kind of up in the air. You got Wrightstown in that one, and then any one of those teams like Brilliant or Valders could make a run, and they're a sneaky team who can get hot, and they've won some big games, including when they knocked off Kiel. So after Valders, next up we got the Brilliant Lions. We'll transition to them, and the Brilliant Lions. Coming into the year, you're kind of looking around. You knew Hunter Kreplin and Jeremy Lorenz. That was one of the better duos in the conference. You're like, okay, you got some 2 stars there in Lorenz and Kreplin. And Kreplin's one of the better guards, one of the better ball handlers in the conference. And then Lorenz, as a sophomore, he's leading the conference in points right now. You were just like, oh, well, how are these guys going to do? Who's going to be that third player? And I think I have size and rebounding kind of down as a question outside of Lorenz, but I kind of thought, like, who would their third star kind of be? And I'm sure people thought, oh, who's their third star? Who are some other guys that are going to come up? And I don't know if we exactly know that yet.
Yeah, I mean, Brilliant definitely led by Lorenz and Kreplin. Like you said, the third star could be anybody on a given night. And I think that's my main thing with Brilliant is just consistency. I mean, you look at some of the numbers I have for them. They're second in the conference in field goal percentage, first in free throw percentage. We get to the line a lot. But 3-point percentage, Brilliant ranks last in the conference, shooting 26%. That's just hot and cold. Some nights you're hitting shots, some nights you're not. You'll get that with a younger team once in a while, but that's Brilliant's key, is just to kind of even that out and be consistent.
I think you hit it right on the head. Just they do have a lot of younger guys. They started 3 sophomores at the beginning of the year, and now they just started a senior in Carter Stabani last night. That was his first game he started in his varsity career, and they do have a lot of inexperience. They played freshman Grady Geiger got some key minutes last night. And it's just going from last year. They did lose a good group of seniors, myself included, along with Bowden Brooks, Mason Schultz, just a couple guys that had a lot of minutes, and guys are kind of evolving into their role. And I still think there's a lot of uncertainty. And who's going to step up to be the third star? Is it a Mason Banky? He had a 25-point game against New Holstein. That was a good game. Caden Holly's another guy who they just need somebody to kind of develop and pull their team together in that third star. And I think if they do that, and if the other next guys kind of step up, they can also make a run looking at that sectional. All right, next we got the Chilton Tigers. And to be honest with you, I haven't really seen Chilton play a game in I think over a month when we saw the Lions play at Chilton. And really Lucas Hallbach is their star. They're kind of he is their leader. He's leading them in points per game by a pretty good margin. He does a lot for them. I know he leads their team in shot attempts by quite a bit, but they also do have some good side pieces that kind of just make their team flow. I know Blake Beasy had 29 in an earlier game, and when they beat New Holstein at Chilton, and Alex Breckheimer and Warren Wilcox, a lot of guys just kind of mesh it together for them, and they really are a solid team. And Chilton does have they played around Collie really close. They have put together a lot of good games this year.
Yeah, Chilton, like you said, Hallback really leads the way with them. Athletic guy, good scorer. Chilton, good defense. They're fourth in the conference on defense, only allowing 57 points a game. Where they struggle though is, shooting the ball. They're eighth in the conference from the field, sixth from the 3-point line. So just, if they can figure it out on offense, they'll be a dangerous team down the stretch here.
Yeah, I agree. That 2-3 zone can throw a lot of teams off. We saw Falls have trouble with that early in the year when they lost by in overtime 65-60 at the Tiger Den. All right. Next team, we got the Two Rivers Raiders, and Two Rivers is a really interesting team, I think. We knew coming into the year that Cameron Daffner, Bryce Peterson, and Spencer Salta, they were going to be your kind of big three, and they were all three guards who could all shoot from the outside, really athletic, could drive it to the basket. And you've shown that they all have good numbers here, but when they don't hit shots, when they don't get hot, Two Rivers defense, that is kind of a question mark. And when they're not hitting their shots, it's not looking the best. But when they are hitting their shots, they can play with almost any team in the conference, I think. They only lost to Kiel by 4 last week, and they played a good game.
Yeah, like you said, when they're hitting their shots, they're a dangerous team. They shoot almost 21 threes a game. That's second in the conference. But where they really lack is rebounding. They're eighth in the conference in offensive rebounds. They lack a little size. And because of that, they are last in the conference with 48 points per game. But yeah, this team, if they hit some shots, they can hang with anybody.
Yeah, we saw that last year. At times, and this year at times. They also are a dangerous team, but they also got the short end of the stick in the playoff when they kind of reconstructed the pods. They are in a tough regional and sectional, and I believe they're with Denmark and Xavier and Freedom, a couple teams like that, and they're gonna have their work cut out for them in the next couple weeks. All right, New Holstein, fresh off a big win last night, a 19-point win at Valders. They knocked them off 70-51. The thing that stands out to me, you see there's no one star for New Holstein. You think of New Holstein in the past, Ryan Steffes, Luke Buffton, Nolan Byrne, couple of guys that just come to mind. There used to be a star-studded team that really they just have Sam Casper in the middle, and then they got a lot of nice side pieces to go with them. And they don't have a star, which I think that's good for them at times. Who's going to step up on every given night? And they've had some nice side pieces. They had a nice win. I'm thinking back to the Brilliant game, and you had some guys like Adam Scholes and Jaden Braun stepping up, hitting some big threes in that game. And it's just New Holstein, that's what they need. They've really proven this year they can play with anyone. They've had some big wins, and they kind of got unlucky with being quarantined. And New Holstein, what are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, New Holstein, they like to slow down the tempo. They average 56 points per game in the conference. They like to work the ball inside, and that's where they find success. When they get the ball inside, they shoot the second most free throws in the conference per game at 14, and they shoot the ball well. They shoot from the free throw line. They're shooting 70% from the free throw line this year. If they can work the ball inside, slow it down, get to the line, that's where they find their success.
Yeah, I looked. They did stay in D3 for the playoffs, and they are with Kiel, I believe, in the number 4 sectional. So they are They're with Kiel there, and New Holstein, they are a team. I mean, they are big. They have a lot of guys with Sam Casper, Phil Casper, both the Olsen brothers and Schnell. They got some height, and they got players. They got good players over at New Holstein. They're still a team to watch, and they hopefully they can figure it out here towards the end and even out their record here. All right, so next we have Sheboygan Falls, and this will end out our 8. The thing I have about Sheboygan Falls first is just duo. That's all I have. JJ Nikolai and Malachi Munoz. Nikolai's leading in conference play with 21.2 points per game, and Munoz is also one of the better shooters in the conference mid-range and from the 3 as well. When they're hot, they can beat anyone. As we saw, they had a nice win against Brilliant. They scored 75 points earlier in the year. And they took Roncalli deep in the game, and they made that a good game at the end earlier this week.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, when they're hitting shots, they can score with anybody. They're second in the conference in points per game. They're third in the conference in 3-point percentage, but the problem there is they're last in the conference in 3-point attempts. So, maybe they should start shooting more threes. They got, an upcoming schedule of Two Rivers, Brilliant, New Holstein. So hopefully they can round out their year, their conference schedule and go into the playoffs hot.
Yeah, and that 8th seed is really misleading. I mean, Sheboygan Falls at 1-9-1 in the conference. That does not, in a year like this, I think everyone knows that doesn't truly it doesn't truly represent your team as it should or as you'd think it would. And they let's face it, they have gotten unlucky. I mean, some teams in the conference haven't been quarantined once. Sheboygan Falls have faced it 3 times. I mean, hopefully they're done with that for the rest of the year. They don't get it again. And because I think they'd be a very good team to watch coming up in the coming weeks, and they can get hot, as we saw last season when they made it to the sectional final game. All right, well, that rounds out our teams, and now we're going to talk a little bit about Player of the Year. All right, in our next part, we will discuss Player of the Year. There's a couple different players that I think have a shot to win it. And I think there's a debate because right now, I think you would agree, Andy, Luke Pouts, he's my best player. Is he your best player in the conference? What do you think? You've seen a lot of basketball this year. Where does he rank on your rankings?
Yeah, I mean, if he's not one, he's definitely up at the top with anybody. I think he's right up there. He's a good inside and out player. He can shoot from anywhere on the court. Even when he doesn't have the ball, he's moving, directing traffic. Great rebounder, great passer. Really just a great all-around player, and he's leading this Roncalli Jets team this year.
Yeah, you're exactly right. He is leading them, and he does it all for them, like you said. He's one of the more physically dominating players I've seen in my time watching high school basketball. He gets any rebound he wants. He can basically steal the ball anytime he wants. Always fights for position. He's just a really solid player. But the only problem is the last 5 years I put the Player of the Year recipients, and they're all seniors. So, and usually that award is given to a senior. Usually there is a senior who's the best player. And that is the tiebreaker a lot of times. So that is the only knock on Luke Pouts is he's not a senior. So that's where it gets tricky. And I think there's 3 seniors who could get it. And I think those seniors are Travis Coleman, Jameson Nikolai, and then I'll throw Hunter Kraplin in there too. Those are, I think, your next 3 guys. And I think really it would be between Nikolai and Travis Coleman for the next 2. And then there's another factor in there. Jameson Nikolai hasn't played nearly as many games as Travis Coleman has.
Yeah, that's obviously the hard part for Nikolai is the lack of games. But I think that aside, he's right up there with any of those 3 guys. And, at this point in the season, it might just kind of be a toss-up, whoever finishes strong and closes out their senior year strong.
Yeah, I'd have to agree on that. Nikolai did have him at number 1 in my rankings to start the year, and I was really confident in that. I mean, here's a guy last year who was an All-State honorable mention for Division III, and let's face it, he's one of the better shooters in our area. And I would say just pure shooting, he's at the top of our conference. Shot 45% from three last year, shooting high percentages again. He had a good night scoring last night against Kiel. I mean, he can do it all. He's been rebounding better, and but you can't count out Travis Coleman. The only problem is in the conference he does not have nearly as much points per game as JJ Nikolai, averaging 6 less points per game. But I mean, they're both good players. I just think it's really going to come down to who finishes their senior year strong.
I agree.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for the first half of this podcast. Stick around for the second half where we will be interviewing a special guest from Kiel, Carson Leppisto. All right. Welcome to our final part of our first podcast here tonight. And we got a special treat for you today. Right now, I have the privilege of welcoming in a dangerous man coming off a hot performance last night. 26 points, 8 for 10 from the field, perfect 4 for 4 from the line, 6 for 10 from beyond the arc. It's my pleasure to welcome in the man, the myth, the legend, Carson Leppisto.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Well, let's just start off. You had a nice win over Falls last night. It was a close game at half, and it ended up being a close final. What was the story of that game, and were there anything that stood out?
Falls, obviously, really good team, really good program, have been for many years. And they run that 1-3-1, and that's really tough. But, we just we shot the ball well, and Jamison Nikolai, man, that dude is tough. He was pulling from anywhere. Just a really good team. They run that dribble drive, and it can be hard to stop. But luckily, we just came out there with a win. But yeah, really good team over there in Falls.
Yeah, for sure. You know, they're sitting at 8th in the conference, but that definitely does not represent what they are as a team, and their record doesn't represent how good they are because, you know, they had a competitive game with Roncalli and competitive game with you. That's 2 good games, the top 2 teams of the conference. All right, well, let's just get into our interview here. First, let's just start out with a basic question. How was the season with COVID? Is it different at all to you? Is it less different than you thought it would be? More different? Like, how is the masks? Is just a general question. Just is it as different as much as you thought, or is it pretty much the same as the last couple seasons?
Well, looking at it kind of from the basketball point of view, I mean, other than the masks, it's not really that much different. I mean, you're still out there on the court just playing basketball. Um, I mean, obviously, you get the officials. They get into it a little bit more just by giving mask violations and stuff like that. But the thing that has really impacted the most, I think, has been the limited fans. Obviously, you can't bring the whole town in like some teams you play do. Um, but yeah, looking at it from a basketball point of view, it hasn't been too much different. The masks, obviously, they're a necessary evil. Does anybody want to have them? No, but if they let us wear them and they let us play, then I'm all for them.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I was kind of surprised. I actually thought coming into the year I would see some more, you know, tired people huffing and puffing, and you do see a little bit more. I'm sure it's a little bit difficult, but I've been really surprised. I mean, you know, it's not that big of a difference, not as much as I thought it would be. All right, well, let's move on. All right, so at Kiel, you guys have like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, 3-headed monster at Kiel. You have 3 really good guards in Travis Pierce and yourself, and also you have a beast down low in Keenan Muntz. I watched him last week at Burley and grabbed 20 rebounds over the Lions and just dominate. And you guys really tried to get him involved in this first half last weekend when Brilliant played at home. How have those like 3 guys, especially like a guy like Pierce Arns, who really this is his first year playing at the varsity high school level, Like, how are those guys helping you, and how nice is it having those guys just to take the weight off, and any given night anyone could go off?
Yeah. Well, starting with Pierce, what he's done has been nothing short of incredible, honestly. Um, Freshman stepping up, starting on the varsity, and he's really been showing out. He's a great addition to the team, as one would say. Like considering we lost our star point guard last year, Connor Velker. He's really kind of stepped up and helped take one of the ball handling roles. So he's huge, and then obviously you know what you're going to get from Coleman. It's Travis Coleman. Dude's a monster, and Keenan obviously down low. He gets just about every rebound, so that really helps the team. But honestly, the stats that don't show up, as one would say, like like the defensive stats, and just the energy. Um, our bench, they bring so much energy. I honestly don't think we would be in the position we are if if we didn't have them. And then you just get guys like Dan Schmitz, Mitch Endries, that they just play good defense. Dan is a monster defender. He gets rebounds, you know. So, but it really is a team effort. We look to play team basketball. It's really not about one person or one man or three people, as you would say. Um, Obviously, we have a couple guys, but it's definitely a team effort for where we are right now.
Yeah, right on. And you kind of took me into my next point. I was going to question. I really noticed, it was nice playing, being at those two games last week back to back. I kind of liked it because you can just see it was just kind of unique. You could just prepare for one team and you could play them, try to get revenge right away. But the thing I noticed that stood out between the two teams, really clearly, was just your energy, and that's what I was going to ask you, was like how, and you answered it already, but I was going to ask, how much does that energy like impact you guys? Because it just seems like you guys just elevate your game so much more when you got those guys on the bench. And I would next up I was going to bring, like, you guys are just a senior led team, and it just really shows on the court. Like you said, like a Dan Endries, even guys like Mason Lewis, Daniel Schmitz, Mitchell Endries, Lewis, all those guys. You've played in, several years now, and it's your time to shine. And you can just tell that you guys are very, very senior driven and just experienced, and that comes along with energy. With your limited student sections you have in your bench, it just seemed like you guys always have that edge, and that kind of can go hand in hand with your long winning streak you have. So just to wrap things up for this interview here, I was just going to ask, you got any like goals for the end of the year? Anything you wanted to accomplish in your senior year?
Well, obviously, the goal for every team to make a deep playoff run. Obviously, that's the goal for anyone playing high school basketball, honestly. But we got some goals. Um, I don't know if I should go around saying it, but we definitely got some goals. Um, yeah, but right now we're just focusing on the next game. We got New Holstein tomorrow. They're much better than their record shows. They're a very good team over there in New Holstein. Um, we we can't overlook anybody. Obviously, um, we're we're uh, we're we're second in the conference, but we can't overlook anybody. This is a tough conference. Anybody can knock off anybody, um, and there's some hoopers in this conference. So um, the goal is right now to win the next game. Really.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Really, yeah, I was looking. You mentioned you have the only conference game tomorrow is Kiel versus New Holstein, and that, I mean, that's a rivalry, I'd say. The old EWC conference foes prior to the new EWC. And I looked, you are also in the same pod for playoffs, so who knows, we could see a playoff matchup, Kiel Raiders. And yeah, that's it's a great thing about this year. There's a lot of unknowns, but there's also a lot of unknowns in the conference. Anyone can knock off anyone. and it'll be very interesting to see how things end up, how stuff winds down at the end of the year. And but I would not want to be on the opposing side of facing the Kiel Raiders, as you guys are red hot, just like you were last year. And hopefully you guys can figure it out, get a deep playoff run, and maybe more. Well, all right, that's going to conclude our first episode of the EWC Boys Basketball Podcast and conclude our interview with Kiel senior guard Carson Lepito. Thanks for coming on today, Carson.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Yeah, no problem, man. Good luck the rest of the year.
Thank you.